When I first started my channel 6.5 years ago, I actually threw some of my best recipes out there in the front, right from the get-go, only to never really being viewed by many people because I was a new channel, nobody ever heard of me, and I want to revisit some of those recipes. And today we're going to start with red beans and rice, a New Orleans style red beans and rice. We're going to do a complete reload on this. I'm going to show you what I do today versus how I did then. And so you know, this original video was not even a video, it was actually screen captures that I turned into a slideshow with captions under it. A lot to be desired in that video. So we're doing a complete makeover today. We're going to get started right after this.
If you wanna cook backyard barbecue till you get your feel, you come to the right place. Restaurant Smoky Ribs. Smoky Ribs. Smoky Ribs.
All right, the heat source for this cook is going to be my Camp Chef sidekick along with a cast iron Dutch oven. Let's go back to October the 6th, 2012, and let's see how I started this video off. Okay, hold it, stop right there. That's one thing I learned early on in my channel, is that you really don't need to show the ingredients twice in a video. I'm sitting there showing you everything that's going into this, and all that does is just kind of waste time, and it kind of distracts from the viewers. They're wanting to get to the heart of this video, they're wanting to get to the recipe and how it's all put together. They'll see these ingredients as they come into play. All right, now let's see what I've done next. Stop, hold it right there. As you've seen, I started by sauteing my Cajun Trinity, my bell pepper, my onion, and my celery, and I also added the seasonings. Nothing wrong with that. That is typically what you would do, but not on a red beans and rice, and I'm going to show you why right now. Just like in the original video, I am going to start with a little bit of vegetable oil. I've added about 1 tablespoon. The key difference from today and what I done then is I'm adding the sausage in first. This is a smoked pork sausage, and the reason this needs to go in first to brown off is because it's going to release more oils, more flavors of all that sausage, all that goodness, and that's what the vegetables will saute in. All this oil and fat from the pork sausage. All right, we have rendered down pretty good. Got a little slight brown on that. This is smoked sausage, fully cooked. We definitely got some oils rendered out of this sausage. Into that, we're adding 1 large onion. This is a yellow onion. Now into that, we're going to add 1 whole large bell pepper. This is identical to what I done on the first video. This is called the Cajun Trinity. Got 1 more element to make this complete, and that would be 2 stalks of celery. And also, if you notice, I've got the celery leaves. That is something that I didn't add on the first. Do not kid yourself, there is a lot of flavor in the celery leaves, so be sure to use them. At this point, you want to start the seasoning. You don't want to overdo it by any means, but you do want to start with a little salt. We're going to do a final taste for seasonings towards the end. Anytime you add onions, bell pepper, and celery, they're bland without salt, without pepper. So this is going to give them a little head start. Cracked black. And that's strictly to your taste. And like I said, you don't want to overdo it right from the get-go. It's better to add a little salt at the end if it needs it. Now I want to add in a couple of bay leaves. That's small, so I'm going to actually add a third in there. Bay leaf is a key ingredient. Don't leave it out. Ooh, smelling good in the hood. Now you want to add in 1 teaspoon of dried leaf thyme, dried leaf. Now I do have fresh thyme, but in a dish like this, the dried really punches a lot more flavor, and that's what I'd recommend if you're going to do this. You can use the fresh, but in my opinion, this is better. We're going to be adding cayenne pepper. We're not adding a lot here. We're only adding probably about a teaspoon. And that's really a personal preference. If you want to spice it up a little bit, you certainly can add more, or you can add less, or you can omit that. Just want to stir this, keep it moving until all the vegetables are nice and tender. And by the way, you can always remove this sausage and leave the oil, saute your vegetables, and you could add this sausage in later on to cook if you want to keep that firm bite to it. I like it to get more tender than what it is already. Therefore, I'll leave it in through the whole cook. All right, we're looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and add the garlic in. You wanna do this at the last because garlic will burn and scorch on you in a hurry, will become bitter. When you can smell that garlic, and I'm smelling it now, no more than 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and we're gonna add some fluid into this. All right, let's take a look and see what I've done from this point on the old original video. Hope, stop right there. There's nothing wrong with using just straight up water. You can certainly do that with great results, but if you really want to elevate the flavor or more depth of flavor, start with some chicken broth. We're going to add in 1 carton of chicken broth. Now we're going in with the red beans. This is 1 pound of red beans. Make sure you go with a good brand. Sift through your beans when they're dry and make sure you don't have any rocks or anything like that in there, and separate them, and make sure you soak them submerged in water overnight. These soaked all night, covered, and now we're going into the pot. Got to have a smoked ham hock. If you can't find smoked ham hocks, then use smoked turkey legs. All this is really going to do is impart a smoky flavor along with that sausage into this red beans and rice, and it's actually going to break down to where all the meat will actually shred away from this, and you can utilize that meat as part of the dish, and you can throw out the bone. Now you want to use water that's going to dilute that broth down some, and all you want to do is just cover everything right there. This is all the ingredients that goes into the pot, and what we're going to do is, I just brought this up to high heat. We're going to bring it to a boil. As soon as we see a boil, then we're going to reduce it down to a simmer, and we're going to let this simmer for around 3 hours. You will have to stir occasionally to make sure the beans don't stick to the bottom, and after about the 2 hour mark, you'll notice it start forming its own gravy. At the 3 hour mark, everything should be nice and tender and be nice and thick. Some people like their red beans and rice more on the thinner side. I prefer them nice and hearty and thick, and that's what I'm doing today. By tradition, the folks over in New Orleans, they always eat a nice crusty French bread or garlic spread on it with their red beans and rice. Might not have a garlic spread at all, but that's the way we're doing it today. Let me show you a new product from my friends over there at the Oyster Bed. Some of you might remember a couple of videos I've done using the oyster bed and also the steak bed last year. Well, they got their own seasoning now. This is not an everyday seasoning. This has dehydrated garlic and parsley, and I don't know what else they got in this, but man, it smells fantastic. And it's really designed to make like a compound butter out of, but you could also use it as a seasoning. I actually thought about adding it to the red beans and rice. It would be beautiful in it, but it would be, you know, my traditional recipe, so I didn't go there, but I am going to be using it on a garlic bread, and here's how you do it. So I'm only doing 1 stick of butter. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of the Paran's seasoning into this bowl. This stuff smells really good. Now to rehydrate this, I'm gonna put in 2 tablespoons of beer. However much of this seasoning you use the same amount of beer. Oop, might have went over just a tad there. Mix this in good. Now we're just gonna let this hang out for a few minutes and rehydrate. You'll actually be able to see the bits of garlic and the leaf from the parsley once this is fully dehydrated or rehydrated. All right, now I've got a stick of softened butter. I've had it hanging out in the kitchen for probably 3 or 4 hours. It's completely softened, and all I'm going to do is just take a fork and we're going to blend all this in really well. You can also actually melt your butter like in a microwave and then pour this in, mix it all up, and then let it re-solidify. All right, I think we got a good mix on this. We're just going to let this hang out, and we'll be doing this towards the very end of the video when we put our garlic bread together with our French bread. All right, just like on the original video, I'm 2 hours in, and as you can see, it's starting to make its own gravy. Now we still got about another hour on this. I've checked a few beans. The whole trick is to make sure your beans are not al dente, that they're completely tender. I mean very tender, falling apart. And that's actually what starts creating this gravy. A lot of people will take and smash up beans and all that to get that thickness. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is just let it cook. You see how low that simmer is? That's what you want. Now, I don't think I said it earlier, but the lid has got to be off. It has to reduce slowly over a 3-hour period. And when I say 3 hours, don't go by time only. Go by what you got. Test your beans, check for tenderness, and get them as thick as you like. Some people might like that just like it is. That's not thick enough for me. So like I said, we got about 1 more hour. I have tasted this already. It's not the final taste, but I've tasted it for seasoning. So far, just right. Keep in mind, the chicken broth does have sodium, so that also has to be countered into your salt content. We are done and ready to plate up. I'm going on with some rice, dead center. All right, we're going to uncover this first. Now, as you can see, I've already removed the bone from that ham hock. It broke down good. I mixed up what little bit of meat there was inside these red beans. So we're just going to spoon this around the perimeter. And oh yeah, get rid of your bay leaves. You don't want nobody choking on that. You see that thick consistency? That's what you're wanting. All right, we're going to start by putting some French bread. Didn't that turn out beautiful? So there's really nothing appealing or appetizing about a red beans and rice dish unless you grew up on it and you know what you're fixing to dive into. But we're going to add a little color to this. Try to make it pop a little bit, make it look a little better. Plus these onions, these are green onions, are going to add just a little bit more flavor to it. Now, I never eat red beans and rice without some Louisiana hot sauce, and that's what we're going on with. It's also going to add as a little bit of a garnish. We are ready to eat. All right, let's try this. Tell you what, this just screams soul food. This screams Southern food. It's kind of hard to describe, boy. This is New Orleans at its best. And in case you don't know, New Orleans every Monday, and not just New Orleans, even over here where I work, on Mondays in the cafeterias and the food trucks, red beans and rice every Monday. It's a tradition for as long as I've been around, a lot longer than that. All right, we're going to try some of this French bread. That garlic, that French bread pairing with these red beans and rice This is sure enough really good eats. I hope you enjoyed this reload of my red beans and rice, New Orleans style red beans and rice. Hope you give it a try. I'm pretty sure you're gonna love them. Until next time, smoke your ribs.